The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Vexthor of the Kralix Empire slammed 3 of his appendages against the crystalline podium. His bioluminescent skin pulsed with indignation as he addressed the assembly of representatives from 200 star systems. "For the last time," he hissed, his translator implant converting his words into universal standard. "Why is this primitive world, this Earth, given a council seat when they possess no orbital defense platforms, no fleet worth mentioning in technology centuries behind our own?" The question had been asked before, countless times over the past solar cycle since humanity had been granted their inexplicable position among the galactic powers, and each time, the elder species exchanged knowing glances and offered vague diplomatic responses. But Vexthor was young, ambitious, and tired of what he perceived as cosmic nepotism. High Chancellor Mordak of the ancient Eshtari Collective finally rose from his hover throne, his 6 eyes regarding the Kralix ambassador with something approaching pity. "Perhaps," the Chancellor's aged voice resonated through the chamber, "it is time the younger species learned why we do not provoke the humans." Vexthor's skin flickered with triumph. Finally an answer. 300 years ago, Mordak began, the Zelthron swarm arrived at Earth's solar system. They were apex predators of the galaxy, a hive mind that had consumed 40 civilizations. They saw Earth as an easy conquest. No shields, no plasma cannons, no faster-than-light capabilities, just a blue world teeming with biological matter. The chamber's holographic display activated, showing archival footage of the invasion. The Zelthrons deployed their standard doctrine, orbital bombardment of military installations, followed by ground forces to harvest the survivors. They destroyed what humans called Washington, Moscow, and Beijing in the first strike. 700 million humans died in 3 hours. Vexthor leaned forward, confused. "Then how—" "Because," Mordak interrupted, "the Zelthrons made a critical error. They assumed that because humans had no advanced weapons, they had no weapons at all. They forgot that humanity evolved as persistence hunters on a death world." The hologram shifted, showing human cities in ruins, but also something else. Humans emerging from bunkers, from subway systems, from the rubble itself. They carried primitive kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, and tools that seemed laughable against an interstellar invasion force. "The Zelthrons landed in a city called New York," Mordak continued. "Within 6 hours, they had lost 2,000 warriors to human guerrilla tactics. The humans used their own destroyed vehicles as improvised bombs. They lured Zelthron troops into structures rigged to collapse. They poisoned water supplies that the Zelthrons attempted to consume. They fought with a ferocity that the hive mind couldn't comprehend. The footage showed something that made even Vexthor's battle-hardened sensibilities recoil. Humans charging. Zeltron positions with nothing but blades and determination, accepting catastrophic casualties to achieve tactical advantages. But the Zelthrons still had orbital superiority, another council member noted. "Yes," Mordak agreed, "until the humans hijacked their own satellites and crashed them into Zelthron ships. Until human pilots flew primitive aircraft loaded with nuclear warheads directly into Zelthron carriers in suicide runs. Until human engineers built electromagnetic pulse weapons from scrapped consumer electronics and disabled entire landing zones." The hologram displayed the turning point. Human resistance fighters, covered in ash and blood, standing over the corpse of a Zelthron queenform in the wreckage of what had been London. "The Zelthrons retreated after 93 days, Mordak said quietly. They had landed with 50 million warriors. Fewer than 5 million escaped. The hive mind, which had never known defeat, simply withdrew. They sent a message to the Galactic Council before fleeing to dark space. Never approach the humans. They do not know how to surrender." Vexthor's skin had gone pale. "But surely with modern weapons, with proper military doctrine." "That's what the Corvan Empire thought," another elder spoke up, Ambassador Thelnus of the Vorath Union. 50 years after the Zeltron invasion, the Corvans decided to test Earth's defenses. They brought a fleet of 300 warships planning a clean orbital bombardment, followed by resource extraction. The hologram shifted again. By then, humans had reverse-engineered Zelthron technology and built their own rudimentary fleet. 47 ships total, all outdated by galactic standards. The Corvans expected an easy victory. Thelnus paused. The humans rammed 17 of their ships directly into Corvan dreadnoughts. Not as a last resort, as an opening strategy. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The remaining 30 human vessels fought with such reckless aggression that the Corvan admiral assumed they were facing a suicide cult. Humans would disable their own life support to divert power to weapons. They would eject their escape pods at enemy ships as makeshift projectiles. When their ammunition ran out, they used debris, asteroids, anything they could accelerate to lethal velocities. The battle lasted 18 hours, Thelnis continued. The Corvans won in the technical sense. They destroyed the human fleet. But they lost 147 ships doing it. The cost-benefit analysis made no sense. And then the Corvans realized their mistake. What mistake? Vextor whispered. They had only faced humanity's navy, not humanity itself. Thelnis gestured to the hologram, which now showed Earth's surface. Every human government immediately began conscription. Every factory converted to weapons production. The entire species mobilized for total war. Intelligence reports indicated they were preparing to build thousands of ships, weapons that violated every galactic warfare convention, and strategies that our military theorists classified as mathematically insane but tactically sound. The Corvans withdrew and paid reparations, Thelnis finished. Not because they couldn't win, but because the cost of victory would have bankrupted their empire and traumatized their species for generations. Chancellor Mordak rose again. So you see, Ambassador Vextor, Earth is not defenseless. Earth is something far more terrifying, a world that sees no difference between survival and victory, that treats death as a tactical option rather than a failure state, and whose inhabitants possess a psychological makeup that most species reserve for horror stories. The ancient being fixed all 6 eyes on the young Kralix diplomat. We do not attack Earth because we remember what happened to those who did. We give them a council seat because we understand a fundamental truth. Humanity doesn't need to be the strongest species in the galaxy. They only need to ensure that defeating them costs more than conquering them is worth. Vextor sat down slowly, his earlier indignation replaced by a cold understanding. So, when you see their empty orbit, Mordak concluded, remember that absence of defense is not the same as vulnerability. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon is the willingness to use it without hesitation, and in that regard, humanity has never been defenseless. The council chamber remained silent as the truth settled over the assembly like a shroud. Earth's seat, it seemed, had been earned not with technology, but with something far more primitive and infinitely more terrifying: the indomitable human spirit.